Welcome, everyone. I'd like to call the May 27th, 2025 Marine Resources Commission meeting to order. Please stand for the Pledge of Allegiance led by Associate Commission Member Bransom, followed by invocation by Associate Member.
I pledge allegiance
to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Let us pray. Thank you, Lord, for giving us this day and the opportunity to meet here at Virginia Marine Resources Commission. Allow us to discuss these important marine resource issues to the best of our ability and knowledge. For this we pray, amen.
Thank you. Thank you all. Welcome, everyone. I hope everyone had a safe and joyous Memorial Day weekend. I want to give a shout out to all those who served and thank them, and remember all those who made the ultimate sacrifice. So thank you all for those who have served. That being said, let's move on to approval of the agenda. Are there any corrections, deletions, changes from the commission members or staff to the current agenda? I see nothing. Nothing. Anyone?
Motion to approve.
Motion to approve, Mr. Erskine. Got a second from Mr. Bransom. Any further discussion? All those in favor say aye. Aye. All those opposed, nay. Keeping you on your toes today. Motion carries 7. Let the record reflect, Lisa, that Associate Member Hand is not here today. All right. Are there any corrections, deletions, or changes from the commission members or staff for the April 22, 2025 commission meeting minutes? Anything from staff? Seeing nothing. Anything from the commission? All right, matters before the commission.
Motion to approve as submitted.
I got a motion to approve as submitted from Mr. Erskine, a second from Mr. Headley. Any further discussion? All those in favor say aye. Aye. All those opposed? Motion carries. Thank you. All right, at this time, I'd like to swear in VMRC staff and VIM staff that will be speaking, presenting testimony during today's meeting. Do you swear to tell the whole truth, nothing but the truth, so help you God? Thank you. All right, I'm going to take a second for a personal preference to recognize two individuals, Miss Beth Howe and Mrs. Stephanie Iverson Kaysen. Could you guys please come up if you're in the room, please? I want to recognize these young ladies. They have been at the Commonwealth. I'm not going to give any specific details, but they've been at the Commonwealth for well over 60 years combined. They're retiring. This is their last commission meeting, the last time they'll be here for a commission meeting. I wanted to give them a shout out due to the fact of not only your tenure here, the time and what you've done for the Commonwealth, but you guys, I mean, Beth, you've been the clearinghouse for JPAs. I don't know how many you've done. It would be a ridiculous number. Good luck to the Army Corps when they take it over to try to compete, is all I got to say. And I wanted to make sure to put that publicly because you've done one amazing job. And the Commonwealth is better for the service you have provided. And moving on to Stephanie. So Stephanie and I go back, way back a lot more than 20-some years. So in my previous life, I've had some interactions with her here at VMRC, and you've always been amazing. You've always looked like you were modeling garbs and stuff. You were always dressed to the top. I've just the most amazing. Every time I seen you, it looked like I thought maybe we were doing a commercial today or something. So you've done amazing work in Manitowoc Harvest Report, and you were here at the beginning when it started, and seen it, evolve into what we have now. And you guys are not only pioneers, you're trailblazers. The technology and the stuff finally coming along and moving along. You guys were here when we had to change, and as you know, VMRC's always been a little bit behind on getting the resources to stay ahead on the times, and we've always managed. So for that, I would like to stand up and give them a standing ovation for over 60 years. Is there anything you two would like to say to us?
No, sir. It's been a pleasure, and I'll miss everybody, but I'm happy to move on.
Well, I've done this a long time, and I said I wasn't going to do a whole lot of talking about it, but I can't not talk about how amazing my tenure here has been. The people who I've worked with, Commissioner Green, all of my supervisors and past people who I've worked for. It has really been a pleasure. And for the team that I had, the young ladies and the young men who've come through my shop over the last umpteen years. I will say it has been truly a pleasure to be part of this amazing agency and the work that is done. We are known along the Atlantic coast as one of the premier states for data collection, and that's because of the hard work that staff here does and that we all have been able to do for the agency. And so it has been truly my pleasure, and I will miss all of you all very, very much.
Thank you so much for your service to the Commonwealth. You guys have been amazing, and hopefully we'll have you back soon. But, you know, you guys, thank you. And I want to give a shout out to your families. I know Mr. Cason's here, and I don't know if Mr. Howe's here or not, but I want to give a shout out to your families because, you know, being a public servant is, you know, it can be very tough, and it's not the most rewarding job, especially sometimes with pay, stuff like that. But you pull from your family, it takes time from your family to you miss events, you know, and stuff like that to make sure that we're providing the customer service to the constituents and our customer base that we do. So for that, I want to thank the families for the sacrifices you have made to allow them to be the great public servants they've been. And we hope and pray that that the reputation and character you left behind lives on in the people that you've trained. And thank you so much for your service.
Thank you all.
Now, I'm not going to promise you I'm going to be here for 60 years. I can promise. That being said, Randy, the floor is yours.
Commissioner, members of the commission, good morning. Commissioner, there's no way I cannot say something about Stephanie and Beth. I joined Fisheries in 1988, and since that time, I can't tell you how many interview panels Stephanie and I have sat on to help hire new people into fisheries. In fact, I managed to harvest a few from fisheries myself and bring them in the Habitat Management Division, and Stephanie will tell you that. And as for Beth, there's probably not one name in the Commonwealth that is more recognized at VMRC than Beth Howell because of the just under 3,000 applications we get a year, and for every application we get, there's a number of revisions. It's about 22,000 emails a year that Beth and her people process to make sure it gets in the right box. And in the last couple of weeks, the emails have been pouring in from Southwest Virginia, from Northern Neck, from Northern Virginia. Everybody knows Beth Howell. So she's truly, she's well deserving in her retirement.
Yes, she is.
So we're going to speak this morning about the page 2 items. I have 6 total. Item 2A, Purdue Agribusiness is requesting authorization to mechanically dredge 14,000 cubic yards of state-owned submerged land to a maximum depth of minus 38 feet mean low water adjacent to their existing unloading dock and minus 42 feet mean low water adjacent to their existing dock at their Purdue Agribusiness facility on the southern branch of Elizabeth River in Jones Creek in the city of Chesapeake. The dredge material will be barged and offloaded at either the Craney Island Dredge Material Management Area, Shirley Plantation in Charles City, or the Precon Marine Facility in the city of Chesapeake. We recommend approval with the standing dredge conditions. This project requires a VMRC subaqueous permit. Item 2B, the city of Virginia Beach is requesting authorization to maintenance dredge approximately 500,000 cubic yards per cycle of state-owned submerged land within the Rudy Inlet Federal Navigation Channel, sand trap, and outer deposition basin to a maximum depth of minus 22 feet mean lower low water in the sand trap situated along the Atlantic Ocean in Virginia Beach. Dredging will occur either by hydraulic or hopper dredge methods on an as-necessary basis, with sidecast dredging utilized as an emergency measure. Dredged sand will be hydraulically pumped to the resort beach area and released, placed in the nearshore beach area north of Rudy Inlet or placed on Croatan Beach south of Rudy Inlet. We'll recommend approval with the standard dredge conditions and the previous sidecast dredging special condition. This project requires a subaqueous permit. Item 2C, you're acting today as the Essex County Wetlands Board, and regrettably, the Board of Supervisors just met recently, and they have finally killed officially the Wetlands Board. They had re-adopted the ordinance, But they reconsidered that, and they have now officially done away with the Essex County Wetlands Board. So we will forever be that wetlands board unless they pick it back up. Item 2C, Elias Scott is requesting authorization to construct a 40-foot low-profile groin extending channel of an existing bulkhead on the Rappahannock River shoreline at 113 Wildwood Place in Essex County. The project requires a VMC wetlands permit, since you are acting as a wetlands board, and a general permit number 2 for the groin. Item 2D, the Virginia Port Authority and Rocket Lab USA are requesting authorization to dredge approximately 59,042 cubic yards of state unsubmerged land to achieve a maximum depth of -7 feet, mean low, on an as-needed basis within Sloop Gut Channel adjacent to Wallops Island in Accomack County. Dredged material will be barged to Shirley Plantation and offloaded for upland disposal. We recommend approval with our standard dredge conditions and the use of a turbidity curtain and an environmental dredge bucket to minimize impacts on an adjacent leased shellfish bed. This project requires a Sabacus permit. Item 2E, Naval Station Norfolk is requesting authorization to construct a 200-foot long by 16-inch wide concrete sheet pile breakwater structure spanning the north side of an exempt concrete open pile pier adjacent to building V as in Virginia 47, serving Norfolk Naval Station on Willoughby Bay in the city of Norfolk. The project requires a Sabacus permit. And lastly, item 2F, you are acting as the default wetlands board for Chesterfield County. The Virginia Electric and Power, doing business as Dominion Energy, is requesting authorization to install a monopile support structure. It's a pole that will result in 20 square feet of tidal vegetative wetland impacts on Proctors Creek in Chesterfield County, serving the Dominion Chesterfield Power Station. The applicant has already purchased the tidal wetland credits from the Virginia Aquatic Resource Trust Fund, and this project requires a VMRC wetlands permit.
Thank you, Randy. Appreciate you. Is any questions from the commission? Mr. Orson?
Thank you, Chief. I had a question about the two dredging items, 2B and 2D. So those are standard dredging conditions. Does that include the time of year restriction? What would that be?
The standard does not. It's just your pre-construction meeting, pre- and post-dredge bathymetric surveys. And, we want to make sure that we meet with the actual contractor to ensure that they know horizontally and vertically what the permit limits are and how the material will be handled from a placement standpoint.
Okay, so as a follow-up, sir, those do not have time of year restrictions then proposed?
The standard in-stream conditions do not. That is correct.
All right, thank you.
Any more questions from the commission? Thank you, Randy. Is there anyone in the audience that wishes to speak on one of these items, one of these item 2 projects? Does anyone want to speak on them, for or against? All right. That being said, item 2 projects before the commission.
Move to approve.
Got a motion to approve from Mr. Bransom.
Second.
I got a second from Ms. Edwards. Any further discussion? Got a properly made motion from Mr. Bransom. It's been properly seconded by Ms. Edwards. All those in favor say aye. Aye. All those opposed? Any abstentions? Motion carries 7-0. Thank you. On to consent agenda items. There are no consent agenda items for today. Next one, is there a need for a closed council?
No, sir.
All right, well, moving right along. Chief Owen, you're on. Mr. Gibson, project number 24-1759.
Philip Gibson is requesting authorization to construct a 17-foot by 48-foot open-sided boathouse adjacent to an existing pier serving 119 Dandy Haven Lane along Bat Creek in York County. This project is protested by the adjacent property owner. Down here in the circle, Mr. and Ms. Gibson's property is located at the mouth of Bat Creek, where it empties into the thoroughfare. This is Goodwin Islands, York River. They're directly across from Seaford Scout at the mouth of the creek. Mr. Gibson was in front of you with his contractor back at your February meeting. They had begun the repairing and lengthening the roof without the required VMC permits. They had set 8 pilings, and at that meeting, the commission ordered the removal of the framing and the pilings, and they assessed a $6,000 civil charge to both Mr. Gibson and to his contractor, Wade Webb, with Blackwater Pier and Dock. They have since removed the framing. Both the contractor and Mr. Gibson have paid the civil charges. Mr. Gibson is back in front of you. We did work with him and the commissioner to leave the 8 poles in place so that you, the commission, could decide whether or not he could frame back out to them. The poles are notched. If you were to pull those piles, should you elect to approve this today, had you pulled the piles, that you could not have redriven them because they were notched. And the reason, when Mr. Gibson approached this project in his application, there were some poles within the existing lift that were compromised, so he pulled off 20% of the roof to reinstall those piles and put the lift back in, and then he wants to reframe it to 2.7 feet longer than what it was originally framed at. This boathouse has been there since 2002, 23 years. As you can see, the framing has been removed that was unauthorized. The pilings are still sitting there. And the hope is to frame back out to the pilings, resulting in a roof that would be 2.7 feet longer than what he had. And that is to accommodate a larger boat he has now. Project is protested by the adjacent property owner, Mr. Dewey Reagan, who argues that the boathouse expansion reduces the distance between his pier and that of Mr. Gibson's, and that it will interfere with his plans for a new floating dock and an additional boat. We have 2 support letters, one from Dr. John Bryant, who's arguing that the request is a minimal change to the existing pier with no negative impacts on navigation. We also have a support letter from Christopher Varver, who argues that this is an insignificant increase and it's necessary to accommodate Mr. Gibson's larger vessel. I stole this aerial from the February hearing. It's a drone imagery where you can see the unauthorized framing that has since been removed and the property line extended. Originally, Mr. Reagan's was going to, to have a repair and apportionment done, but we've been advised by Mr. Reagan's counsel, Carl Easton, who is here today, that they felt like Mr. Gibson's existing boathouse and the additional 3-foot of roof was, they believed, likely to be within Mr. Gibson's repairing area, so that repair and apportionment has not gone forward. I'm going to leave these slides up. This is what it looked like back in February, and it began last August, but you can see what he's asking to do today is to reframe again to the new piles. And I want you to look at these 2 photographs here. This is the fence that separates the 2 properties. Mr. Reagan's is on the right, Mr. Gibson's on the left. So you can see that property line extended from both the land base, and if you're standing on the pier looking back, there's the fence right there. So you can see that it's built right up to the property line. So I'm going to leave those slides up and move right into my summary and recommendations. Mr. Gibson's boathouse has existed for 23 years and has not created an issue for his neighbor, Mr. Reagan's, to access his pier, nor does it appear to represent a riparian issue. Staff feels like Mr. Gibson's expansion request to increase the size from 45 feet in length to 47.7 feet is a reasonable use of state-owned submerged lands to accommodate his recent purchase of the larger vessel. And I think he's owned the boat for a year or 2 now, the larger vessel. Accordingly, after evaluating the merits of the project against the concerns expressed by those in opposition, and after considering all the factors contained in 28.2-1205A of the Code of Virginia, we recommend approval with a triple permit fee of $900, sir. That's all I have.
Any questions from the commission for Mr. Owen?
Thank
Thank you, Randy. Is the applicant or representative for the applicant here and wish to speak at this time? Are you the applicant?
Yes, sir.
Please raise your right hand. You swear to tell the whole truth, nothing but the truth, so help you God?
I do, sir.
Please state your name for the record.
Philip Gibson.
Proceed.
I want to apologize for not getting the proper permits. I've looked at the VMRC meeting several times, and I know what a pain it is for y'all when somebody doesn't get a permit. Y'all have a lot more important things to deal with than this sort of thing. I just want to say, I did go talk to Milton, Dewey Reagan's, I call him Milton. I did go and talk to him 30 days before I did anything. I told him about my boat. I told him what I was going to do, made sure he understood, and he was okay with it. And he said he didn't have a problem with it. And then, you know, when I started, he threw a fit about it, called the VMRC, who stopped me. It's very disheartening to me because, you know, I've been his neighbor for 23 years and never had a problem with that. And when I talked to Brad Reams, he said, well, it would be nice if you went over there and got him to sign off on the APO since he told you he was okay with it before. So I went over there and talked to him, and his biggest problem was my boathouse, when I added to it, would block his view, and I guess of the Scallop Company, which is 10 to 15 scallop boats there. And I said, Milton, you're worried about me blocking your view to the Scallop Company? And he said, well, let me think about it. So I came back over there a few days later and said, hey, have you thought about it? What do you think? And then he said, well, I don't want your boat driving in front of my house. And I said, man, I've been doing that for 20 years. And then again, let me think about it. And then I went over there and I would reduce his real estate value. And I would hit his dock if I pulled him. I've been pulling in there for 20 years and never come close to his dock. So, you know, it's very disheartening to me because I just don't understand it. I mean, his kids and my kids used my dock. We all had boats out of there for a long time. Milton, he never had a boat. And, you know, although his wife and his son went out on my boats, Milton never did. He never was a boater there. I mean, he had a ski boat that he never put in salt water. That was the only boat I knew him to have. So it was just frustrating that, you know, he would be against this, but he is. But I appreciate y'all listening to me, and, you know, hope you will consider it. You know, I think given the size of my boat, what I'm asking for is reasonable.
Is there any questions for Mr. Gibson from the commission? Any questions? Thank you, Mr. Gibson. Thank you.
Thank you.
Is there anyone else in the audience that wishes to speak on this matter at this time? Please come forward.
Good morning.
Please raise your right hand. You swear to tell the whole truth, nothing but the truth, so help you God?
I do.
Please state your name for the record in the microphone.
Jeanette Gibson, I'm Philip's wife,
Proceed.
and I'm gonna try to get through this. So, we lived next to Milton for over 20 years. As Philip mentioned, the kids played on the dock. You know, we raised our kids, we built our business, we've paid our taxes, and he and I are ready to retire. and enjoy what we've worked so hard to attain. And it's just strange to me, you know, in 20 years, nothing has changed. Our boathouse hasn't changed, our pier hasn't changed, our boating habits haven't changed. And all of a sudden, you know, this is a monumental issue for Milton. I don't get it. In 2005, after the hurricane, he rebuilt his house. We were the only ones on the lane for a little while, but he rebuilt his house. And originally, his house was in the middle of his lot. When he rebuilt his house, he pushed it as close to the property line as possible and angled it so it's like, you know, a clear view of our pier. And I didn't get that, but whatever, we didn't care, but now it's a problem for him. And his house is over 300 feet from our boathouse. I mean, that's a football field. And the other side, as Philip mentioned, is the scallop company. I mean, I don't understand, you know, what view we are being accused of encroaching on. It just doesn't make sense. It's like all of a sudden we've been doing the same thing for 20-some years, and all of a sudden it's like, oh my gosh. You know, I don't know when he built his house and he angled it at our pier what he was thinking then. But anyway, that's all I got to say. And yes, we've had this boat now for over a year, and it's been torment. And we started off on the wrong foot, but, you know, we made good on it.
Mr. Erskine, you have a question?
I just have a question, ma'am. So why in the beginning did you all not obtain a permit from VMRC for the expansion of the boathouse?
Okay, my husband took care of most of that, but we definitely blew that. We did rely on the contractor. I mean, we hired a contractor. You would have thought he would have known. And by how my husband read the code, even though I don't know that that's a job, I don't know, but he thought because we were in the same footprint, we were okay. Well, we weren't. And, you know, we paid for it. There's no doubt.
Okay, thank you.
I wish we would have.
Other questions from Ms. Gibbs? Thank you, Ms. Gibbs. Appreciate
Thank you.
it. Is there anyone else in the audience that wishes to speak at this time on this project? Please come forward. Raise your right hand. You swear to tell the whole truth, nothing but the truth, so help you God?
I do.
Please state your name for the record.
John Bryant. I'm a physician in York County, and I've lived on Dandy Haven Lane for about 38 years, when it was a dirt lane, and there was no house to the right or to the left of me. And then Bud Wright built to the left, and then the Gibsons built to the right. There was one house on the end of the lane, which was Dewey Reagan's parents. They were both patients of mine, as was his brother, and as he has been off and on over the years. So I know the Reagan family well. They were great neighbors. The Gibsons have been fabulous neighbors. I'm sorry this has happened, and it's disrupted the relationship for the people there. But when Phil decided to do an extension on his pier, he came and told Sarah and I, said, I'd like to extend my pier, I think 3 or 4 feet. Do you have a problem? I said, no, not at all. He's been kind enough over the years to allow me to moor my boat there from time to time, to go over there and crab and fish. They've just been super neighbors. In 2003, Isabel came, and there were only 2 new homes on the street. The 3 that weren't new were demolished. My home, the Reagan's home, and the home on the end were all had to be bulldozed, and we moved out for a couple of years, and we loved it down there, so we came back and rebuilt. But I'd just like to say the Gibsons as neighbors have been wonderful. They helped us during the demolition. They helped us once we rebuilt. Anytime there's been a storm, there's been debris up in the yard, they and their son have helped. He comes over with a tractor and whatever. And I have no beef with Dewey Reagan's. He has a nice pier. I've never had opportunity to use it. He's offered it. I've never had opportunity to use it. So I hope that whatever you all decide will be favorable. I have no objection to them increasing the size of the pier to accommodate their boat.
Is there any questions from the commission? Mr. Speaker. Thank you, sir. Thank you so much for your time. Is there anyone else in the audience that wishes to speak on this matter at this time?
Mr. Commissioner and members, Carl Easton for the record. I'm from Walcott Rivers Gates, and I represent Mr. Reagans. We're in opposition to this. You know, some of you in here may be old enough to remember Paul Harvey. You hear the rest of the story. I feel like we missed the rest of the story here. We started out with a pier that was built illegally in 2002. And we take that and we come to 2024 and we say, oh, we just thought we were doing repairs and maintenance. If you look at what Mr. Reams has submitted you in your package, you'll see that Mr. Gibson's not only had the original permit, but he's had other permits in the interim. And it's hard for me to countenance standing here and hear him say, oh, I stood behind my contractor, he was supposed to do it. The contractor knew a permit was required, and they built in defiance of that. When Mr. Reams told him to stop construction, he didn't heed it. When he told him to remove the structure, he didn't heed it. He finally got the stop work order, and when the threat of legal prosecution was present, that's when you saw the roof come off, but not the pilings. Staff came here, and what do we hear? The contractor and the homeowner that go out and habitually build without the benefit of a permit, and that's an ever-increasing problem for this commission. And so what we do is we just let a little passage of time go. We tell them about the hardship. We pay our fine as though that vindicates everything, and then we allow you to have that same structure back. That's build now and ask for forgiveness later, and it's bad precedent. Mr. Reagans will comment on whether or not he knew this was going, and for him to say he's not a boater doesn't mean that he yields his riparian rights. Riparian rights are supposed to be in front of your building. And you know, I hear my name thrown around that we don't think it's in a riparian area. I had a preliminary done, but only a circuit court judge, of which I'm not. There is one in Suffolk named Carl Easton, has to make that determination. So to sit here and say that it's not in the riparian area, I'm not going to attest to that on this record. That's an open issue. But it was close enough to me to where when you get within 2 or 3 feet, it's not worth incurring $5,000 or $7,000 to go to circuit court. And an apportionment is an equitable distribution of the use of the riparian area. Equitable means fair, and that means there's latitude in that decision. The whole idea of the pier expansion, the roof expansion, is not the seminal problem. The problem is that Mr. Gibson put his pier in an orientation that's on east-south, east-west. And when you put it right against the property line extended, then by definition, any and all accesses has to be through the riparian area of Mr. Reagans. I stood here in February and I said, the problem I've got with it, this is an opportunity for him to rebuild, and he can do it in the north-south axis, and he can go 70 feet for all I care. Or he can maintain it as its original structure. And Mr. Reagans wouldn't object because he's tolerated it. He didn't agree to it. He's tolerated it for that many years. So I had, as I told you I would in February, submitted a pier. Mr. Reagans is at a point in life where he's finally earned enough. He wants to get a bigger pier. He's looking at boats right now in the neighborhood of 40 feet. He does have a boat, 21 feet. He does have a watercraft, personal watercraft, and they do use them. And whether they use them or not doesn't deny him the right to the riparian area in front of his house. And so he applies for a permit. It's 250864. And who opposes it? Big surprise. The person who wants to utilize that riparian area to access it for his new boat. And not only that, they've gendered, I think, 9 protests so far from just about everybody in the neighborhood. And it's called a spite pier that Mr. Reagans is trying to build. It's not a spite pier when I tell you this is our riparian area and here's what we plan to build within it. And if you continue to persist to have an expanded boat lift on your own property and you want to do it in an east-west orientation that encroaches upon my client's property, that's not a reasonable use of the resources, and it's not an equitable use of the resources. So I pray that you deny this application, and I think you set very bad precedent for people to just come in at later dates, violate it blatantly, pay their fine, and then think that justifies the purchase and what they want to do. I don't. So I urge you to please keep that in consideration. I'll let Mr. Reagans speak to the commission. Are there any questions?
Any questions from the commission, from Mr. East?
Yeah, could you pull the picture back up that shows the aerial of the two piers?
One second, sir.
Yes. So when y'all suggested that he reorient his access to his boat, which would go sideways across the picture, I guess to go up and down the picture, is that what y'all suggested to him?
Well,
I mean, I haven't seen the
That's-
plans that you
That's
submitted.
correct. It's
You'll see it.
north-south. Because he has multiple vessels in there, which is fine. If you can afford more toys, God bless you. But if you have your toys and you keep getting bigger ones and you want to come over and you're right on that property line, that's the problem that's created.
I understand that he would, backing his boat out, he's gonna cross that yellow line. I understand that.
But
But
when
he
he was told, you have an illegal structure, take it out, we then said, what a wonderful opportunity. Why don't you correct what occurred back in 2002 and do it right? Put it in a north-south axis and build it as big as you want.
Has he been in the past, before he added this piece to it, when he backs his boat out, has he been crossing that yellow line?
Of course,
So he's been doing it for 20 years since that pier's been there.
of course.
So if he reoriented the boathouse, which is the space above the boat shown, it looks like there's a pier out in front of that.
There
So
is,
you have
sir.
to tear that part down to reorient that?
You would.
Is that correct? I haven't seen what y'all are submitting.
You're spot on.
Okay. All right.
The problem is not that, and I'm not trying to design his yard and his marina and his boat complex, but I don't want, when I submit an application that meets statutory criteria, residential, non-commercial, finger pier not greater than 5 feet, and I get 9 protests from this gentleman who's sitting here violating the permitting, and then he comes in and says Mr. Reagan shouldn't want to do in his backyard, he should have control and precedent because he's got an illegal structure, not only an illegal structure, one that he's tried to expand, then that's not fair. And that's the rest of the story.
Make sure, Mr. Easton, you talk in the microphone, because we gotta have this for the record, please.
Thanks, sir. I'm usually loud enough you can hear me anyway.
I know, but you kinda walked away from the podium a little bit. Mr. Headley?
Mr. Reagan's, is that his dock that's in the picture now?
That's correct, to the right-hand side.
And does he want to build a completely new dock, not in the same position, or?
No, he wants to take that, you see the L head that comes off
sir.
of it?
Yes, sir.
He wants to go immediately to the left of that toward Mr. Gibson's house, and he wants to run 72 feet, 5 feet wide NPN.
Okay.
Yorktown has issued an approval on it. We've already gone through the Corps of Engineers, and we're stopped at VMRC. Because when I spoke with Mr. Owen, he says, we're not sure that we like that. We want to see justification. Well, if it's a legislative grant, it's no permit necessary. Here are the statutory criteria. I'm going to give him the justification. He's buying a 40-foot boat. He's got a 21-foot boat. He's got a personal watercraft. But it shouldn't be required because it meets the statutory authorization. And yet Mr. Gibson comes in and he files protest to it. And then he gets all the neighbors to say protest to it because it's now being called a spite pier. It's not a spite pier if I tell you long before you do it, this is coming. Govern yourself accordingly.
So if he builds an extension within that 94 feet that I'm looking at the screen and goes out 70-plus feet, is that it?
72 feet, yes, sir.
And that's where he'll put his new boat lift?
Yes, sir.
And he's got a 40-foot boat, well, he's gonna go, he's not gonna be able to back his boat out without hitting the pier across from it.
I don't know if he can or he can't, but the problem is that when you look at the Army Corps engineer guidelines, they say never put your structures right up against the riparian area line.
Right.
Always leave a thoroughfare for a boat to travel through. And so what we've done is we've left, Mr. Simon's not with me this morning, but I think 18 or 20 feet. So that anybody wishing to come through there, I can boat over your riparian area. There's no
Right.
doubt about that. It's what we talk about as the structure that you can't impede.
Any more questions? Mr. Easton? Ms. Callum?
What was the reason initially for entering from the boathouse from that side versus the other side? Was it the depth of the water?
From Mr. Gibson's perspective,
Correct.
I think that's correct. I think that to the, I guess that's the north, the left, as we're looking at that photograph, it gets somewhat shallow over there. But as we go, that's east-west, I'm sorry. When it comes off the land and goes channelward, that's a north-south orientation, and there's plenty of water depth from that point out channelward,
But not on the opposite.
but not on the opposite side.
Thank you.
Any more questions? Thank you. Sir, please state your name for the record. Raise your right hand.
Dewey Milton Reagans Jr.
You swear to tell the whole truth, nothing but the truth, so help you God?
Yes.
Proceed.
Speak into the mic.
I've tolerated Mr. Gibson's going in and out of that boat for 20 years. I've tolerated, don't make a big deal about it. But once this is, the only reason we're even here today, the only reason we were here last time is because he got caught building something without permits, period. And if you go back to the original permit that it was issued by VMRC in 2000, you will look and see that he overbuilt that pier, the end of it, by over 500 square feet. This is a guy who's a Class A contractor in Virginia. He knows what the rules are, he knows what the regulations are, and he's violated it back in 2000, and he did it again in 2024, and he got caught. I do intend to retire. I do intend to perhaps get a bigger boat. I've been boating on Virginia waters my whole life. Whether I actually put my boat out there and let it set in salt water, that's nobody's business. I don't leave stuff in salt water. I grew up around the water, been around my whole life. Salt water destroys everything. I've been up in Lake Gaston, Lake Philpott. I spent most of my time in various places here in Virginia. But I don't want my Bavarian View to be violated when I get ready to sell my property or move, because I've been here 30 years. It's the value of my property, and I want the person that wants to purchase it to have the same freedom that I've been enjoying. And I want nobody else to interfere in it. And I've done everything by the book. I don't build nothing without a permit. And coming back about my house, I lost my house in Isabel. I had to build on that spot because that's where York County told me to build it. I didn't build it there because I wanted to. It's because the contractors in the county, York County, said that's where it's got to go. Thank you.
Thank you, sir.
Gibson claims you consented.
Oh, I didn't consent. Listen, this is a total fabrication lie. I did not consent to that. He came over there, he said, I'm going up, I'm not going out. Well, if you're going up, no problem. But when I saw you expanding my way, I said, wait a minute, that's not what we agreed upon. I said, where's the permits? I came home after work, I said, where are the permits? Show me the permits. They didn't have any permits. And he told the contractor to keep building that thing. The contractor was Phil Gibson himself. He's the one that's out there supervising that job, nobody else. So he come before you and he lied to you.
Is there any questions from Mr. Reagan?
Any questions for me?
Thank you, Mr. Reagan.
Thank you, Mr. Commissioner. Members?
Thank you, Mr. Cade. Is there anyone else in the audience that wishes to speak at this time? You want to review? I'll give you a few seconds for rebuttal. Please state your name for the record. You've already been sworn in.
Phil Gibson.
Proceed.
Can I show you all this?
If you give it to me, it's mine. You can't have it back.
You can have it.
We got to hold it for the record. Artie, please explain to us what we have.
See, that's showing the other side of Milton Reagan's pier. And he's talking about he wants to have another boat. Now, if you look at the other neighbor, he also has 3 boat slips. He also travels through Milton's property to get where it's at. He is further away from Milton's pier than I am. Milton's, the L of his pier, it is faced that way because of the prevailing winds. When there is a nor'easter blowing, it's horrific. You can't turn your boat sideways against that wind. It would destroy them. He brought up a picture of the Scallop Company. All their boats face into the wind, and they have a bulkhead just to block those nor'easters. That's why my boathouse is oriented the way it is. And when I built my boathouse, Dewey Reagan's father lived there, and the shorter part of the pier was there. And my boathouse and pier were way out beyond Milton's original pier, or his dad's pier. If you can see the older part there.
Is that the square you're referring to in the middle of the pier?
Yes, sir. Now, that's what was there when I built my pier.
Any,
So-
other person?
So I'm like over 300 feet out from him. And his dad had no problem with me putting a pier there.
Any questions for Mr. Gibson? I'll let the rest of the associate members review that information before I move on to anyone else, just in case there's any questions.
Mr. Reagan's could easily put a 42-foot boat on the other side where the L is. It would be much safer.
Mr. Branson?
You know, one of the staff recommendations is that if we agree with the aforementioned enforcement actions, that you remove all the work that came up in the February meeting, and you've done that with the exception of pilings, which the staff worked to leave in place until a decision is made. Then the civil charges to the pier, the Blackwater Pier and Dock, which they have paid, I understand, and then the assessment of civil charges against yourself, which you have also taken care of, correct?
Yes, sir.
So all the actions from the February meeting have been met, with
Yes,
the
sir.
exception of the piling removal, which the chief had already explained to us. Is that correct?
Yes, sir.
All right, thank you. I just want to make sure I understood that.
Is there any more questions for Mr. Gibson? Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Gibson.
Regarding that drawing, can we talk about that drawing?
The floor is yours.
You want it back?
No. I just looked at the drawing that Mr. Reagan is talking about putting an L on his pier within that 94 foot. If you look up the screen there.
Yes.
And that L is about 72 feet long, plus, I think is what is shown on that. If he puts it where that photograph shows, you're not gonna be able to back your boat out
Yes, it would be.
hitting that pier. So it looks to me like that may be the Spite Pier as well as this. If you look at that.
Yeah, I mean, if you look at that, I mean, him putting his boat where he already has the L, you know, he's got way more room on the opposite side, and he could put a much bigger boat if he so desired. I've never known him to have a boat at his pier, but he could easily, where that L is, put a lot bigger boat.
But it's his choice to put the pier wherever he wants to put it, within his riparian rights.
No, not quite.
I mean,
Yeah,
if he
and
wants to put,
and the question is where is that riparian area? Because he never finished the riparian survey. My surveyor is telling me that I have, because I'm on a point, I have just as much waterfront as he does, and you take the navigable area and divide it by the shoreline area, and what my surveyor was telling me is my line riparian line would move towards Milton's Pier. Because I'm in shallower water, so the navigation line is 3 foot of water. Well, 3 foot of water would start at the beginning of my boathouse and run across to the other side of Milton's property. You take the shoreline on both properties and you divide that up between the navigable water. And that yellow line would move towards Milton's Pier. So that's not necessarily his riparian area. And I think once he saw that that wasn't gonna work in his favor, he backed off on it. But still, I've been using that navigational route for over 20 years. And my new boat turns in a sharper radius than my older boat, although it's a longer boat. So I will not take up any more water than I have been for the last 20 years.
Any more questions? Thank you, Mr. Gibson. Appreciate you.
Right, thank you.
That being said, everyone, matters before the commission. I'm waiting on y'all.
Mr. Commissioner, I have more or less just a discussion. I hate for a pier to turn into a Hatfield and McCoy situation over riparian rights, et cetera. We're looking at one application. The other application hasn't made it to our level to be, we can't even consider what may or may not come, right? So we're looking at this application. I was one of the ones that led the charge on, because I can't stand when people come in and we're hearing things because of the lack of permit, because I do respect our time and staff's time. But so he's made things right since then. And so thank you, sir, for doing so. I just make sure my peers are focused in on the permit on hand and not some proposed permit that may come in the future and may or may not. I don't know. So we're focused on Mr. Gibson's permit at this point. And we are talking 2.7 feet addition to the boathouse, which I remember what was constructed before. Was it 2.7 before? It was much larger. It was a little bit larger, was it not?
Mr. Owens, come forward.
So in 2000, Mr. Gibson applied for a pier and a boathouse. And I went and met with the Gibsons more recently to discuss the proposal. At that time frame, as they explained it, they had younger children and they left it up to the contractor to build a pier and boathouse. And the roof was lengthened, I think, 5 to 7 feet longer than what was applied for in 2000. They weren't even, it's my understanding, they weren't aware of it, that the contractor had steered from the original proposal. So the boathouse was built to 45 foot in length, and it's been that way for 23 years. And now they want to go 2.7 feet further. In his request before you, they pulled out 20% of the roof to get to the compromised pilings. He read section, it's 28.2.1203A, I believe it's 9, Joe. I have it circled in my code book there. 6, 28.2.1203A6. So the way Mr. Gibson explained it to me, he looked at the code where it says you can repair in the same footprint your facility without a VMC permit, and that is authorized by statute. In his mind, the boat lift was going back in the same footprint, but the roof, and he's learned this the hard way, is 2.7 foot longer, and so that took it out of the statutory authorization. But he did look at that code section. That's what he explained to me.
And so,
So now, to reframe the roof, now that the new poles are in for the lift, that's in roughly the same footprint, the roof ends up being 2.7 foot longer than it has been for the last 23
then the
years.
yes.
Yes, sir.
I guess, Chief Owen, I was a little thrown by the construction. I forgot about the compromise pilings that's why they stripped back. So it looks, obviously, it's much larger than 2.7 feet as far as work-wise, but we're only talking the width of this table
Yep.
added onto a boathouse.
Yes, sir.
Yes, sir.
This table is probably 4 feet.
Probably, it's not even.
Erskine.
Yeah.
Chief Owen, I had a follow-up question, just so I'm clear. The pilings that were not removed, I understand part of that roof structure has been removed, but those sit in the same footprint as previously.
I believe the boat lift piles do, but the piles for the most channelward to the west piles, they're very close to, but may not be in the same exact footprint as, the pilings for to reframe the roof. I am not certain that they are or not within the same footprint. The roof itself is gonna be gabled over an extra 2.7 feet.
Right.
The piling, Mr. Gibson may better respond to that, I don't know.
Okay. All right, thank you.
Any more questions?
If we disapprove this, will those piles have to come out? Or are they within the footprint?
I believe, the commission directive was to take them out if you did not approve the roof extension. I would have to, and be honest with you, I would not want them removed if they're in the same footprint. If they're off, then you would have the authority to remove them under that code section I referenced a second ago.
So basically, if it's not approved, if the pilings are not where they originally were, they would have to be removed as well. If they are, then they wouldn't have to be. Any more questions? Thank you, Mr. Hall. Matter's still before the commission. Y'all quiet today.
It's a tough one, Mr. Commissioner, because what we don't need to set is the precedence that you can break the rules, pay your fines, come in and have it then approved. Granted, we're talking 2.7 feet. And I feel, based on the meeting back in February, I believe we took the appropriate actions to set an example that to that extent. But on the flip side too, I understand that we hear case by case, and by this case, 20 years, you made a mistake, and 20 years later, trying to rebuild your boathouse, and understand I make mistakes all the time too. Thank the good Lord, He forgives, and so I'm a forgiving man too. And so when I look at this, you've done everything right. I'd like to make a motion to approve Mr. Gibson's permit and accept the staff recommendations on everything for Mr. Gibson.
So basically, a motion to approve staff recommendation.
Yes, sir.
So I have a motion to approve staff recommendation from Mr. Preston. No, I think staff's recommendation was to approve this project, is that correct? Yes.
Okay.
Yes. Yep. So that's what I took from it.
Okay. Jamie, I second.
Now, I got a second from Ms. Edwards. Any further discussion? Got a motion?
Yeah, I just want to add something. I don't want to change the motion or anything, but, since I've been on the commission, which has been almost a year, and you guys have been down here a lot longer than this continuously comes up about people violating and paying the fine and continuing on with their work. And we talk about it every time, and we just kick the can down the road, so to speak. It's something that we're gonna have to deal with, we should deal with, sooner rather than later. But I just wanted to put that out there because I've only been here a year and I've heard it a lot of times.
Commissioner, I'd like to say something.
Mr. Branson?
Thank you, Commissioner. I agree that, one of the things that we deal mostly in our time here is with habitat and permits, thanks to Chief Owen and his great staff. This one's a little different. I mean, this has been a long-standing pier, and I get it that there were some violations years ago. Instead of 38 feet, it was built to 45, and then it became an extra 2.5, 2.7 feet. But in this case, Mr. Gibson has done, once this was discovered and adjudicated here, he's taken the steps to kind of remedy the past deeds that either the contractor did or he did. He acted in a responsible way. We haven't always seen that with previous petitions before the commission with issues in the 3 years I've been here. We've had a lot of contractors that haven't paid and built new construction. This is something that's been existing for quite a while, so I'm surprised to see it come back again. It's fine. I think Mr. Gibson has made amends to remedy this, and the staff has worked with him. So I just think this one's, I agree with you, sir, that we see a lot of this, and I'd say about 80% of our job up here is dealing with joint permit applications in one form or another. This one's the most unique that I've seen in 3 years, so that's all I have, sir. Thank you.
And I think Randy can attest, we're addressing them now, better than we have in the past, but after-the-fact permits have existed for quite a while. That's not, guys, that's not something that's new. It's not new to us, not here. So that being said, any further discussion? So I have a properly made motion by Mr. Preston that was properly seconded by Mrs. Edwards. There being no further discussion, I'm going to take this to a vote. All those in favor say aye. Aye. All those opposed? Any abstention?
Yes, me.
One abstention. Motion carries 6-0-1. You abstained, right? Mr. White abstained. Thank you. All right, moving to the next item. Randy, I think you're up again. That's accepting, for the record, that's accepting staff recommendations, which was triple permit fees. Yeah, okay.
As soon as I get my mouse over to the right corner of the world here. There we go. Why that's so hard today. Now, normally boathouses are quick. Now I've got an appeal for you, which some of you have not probably sat through an appeal yet of a wetlands board hearing, so this one will take a little bit more work on my part. I'll be as brief as I can, sir.
Proceed.
This is a commission review on appeal by the applicant Wyatt Landing Development LLC of the April 2, 2025 decision of the City of Portsmouth Wetlands Board to deny their request to construct 2 stormwater outfalls with an associated riprap splash aprons serving the Wyatt Landing development adjacent to 3552 Cardinal Lane along Lily Creek in Portsmouth. Project is located on Lily Creek, which is a tributary to the western branch of the Elizabeth River. We're just south of Cranny Island and the Monitor Merrimack, southeast of the Monitor Merrimack Bridge and Tunnel, right here in the city of Portsmouth. This is an aerial showing you the location of the 2 outfalls, outfall A and B. These are stormwater outfalls. And I want to call the commission's attention to this vacant piece of property that I'm outlining. There is a 17-lot residential subdivision plan to go there, and that is what drove the design of the stormwater outfalls. And importantly for my legal counsel sitting up there and for the commissioners, the first 3 slides I showed you were to orient the commission to the project. We do not consider that opening the record, nor are we recommending that we open the record. We want you to hear the record as was before the Wetlands Board. So those are just slides to orient you to the project location. So this is the first of the slides, and those that follow before the board. They heard this on April the 2nd. However, it was scheduled for their March hearing. They did not have a quorum, so they moved it to their April agenda. It was the only new item on the agenda. And the next series of slides are site photographs taken by their staff that were put into the board's presentation. You'll see the 2 stakes out in the mudflat. That represents the channelwood reach of the riprap splash apron into the non-vegetated wetland for outfall A. Now, those stakes, you can see one right here where the laser is. The outfall would come ashore through the small fringing Phragmites marsh vegetation. So that's your vegetative component of outfall A. Same outfall, just a different angle looking in the other direction up the shore. Outfall B, very similarly, staked offshore. That's the channelward limits of the splash apron into the non-vegetated wetland. It as well passes through a small Phragmites fringing wetland across the intertidal zone to the reaches of the outfall splash apron. That's just another angle. This is a site plan that shows you that residential vacant area, showing you that all 17 lots would be built inside of this red area here. This is the site plan. You can see the outfalls A and B depicted on the drawing, and the consultant has called out on that drawing to the square foot the amount of total tidal wetlands to be impacted. And this is a closer view of that, where you can see outfall B, 543 square feet of tidal wetland impacts. That's vegetated and non-vegetated combined. And outfall A, 369. I can't read it. I believe it's 269. Importantly, the consultant did delineate the wetlands on site and have their wetland delineation line shown on the drawing. As I said, this is an appeal, and I apologize for reading to you, but I think in case this goes back to the board or to circuit court, I want to make sure I get the right information to the record. So I'm going to summarize the issues first that are in your evaluation. So during the initial public hearing in March, the board failed to achieve a quorum but chose to discuss the project anyway. At their April meeting, the board heard the concerns of 6 protestants. From looking at the transcript and having our staff at both meetings, it seems that the primary focus of the concerns centered on upland issues associated with the proposed residential subdivision that are outside of the board's jurisdiction. Following public comment at the April hearing, the board questioned the necessity of the 2 outfalls, asking if both outfalls were necessary and whether or not an on-site B&P stormwater management pond could be utilized. The Wetlands Board staff reminded the board that the outfalls and splash aprons were the only structures within the board's jurisdiction, and that the proposed stormwater management plan had been approved by the city's engineering department. After a lengthy hearing in April, the board voted unanimously to deny the project, finding that the project's anticipated public detriments outweighed its anticipated public benefits. The applicant's appeal letters received on April the 7th, within the 10 days required by statute. We do consider this to be a timely appeal and is before you properly. In their letter, the appellant argues that the board's denial was based on factors unrelated to the proposed tidal wetland impacts, and that the decision resulted from their concerns for the proposed residential development that are outside of the board's jurisdiction. So now I'm going to move into my summary and recommendation. At the beginning of the evaluation, I spell out in the first paragraph the statutory requirements under section 28.2, 1302, 10B. Those are the criteria that the model wetlands ordinance sets forth for a wetlands board to consider when denying to grant or deny a permit request. If any of the criteria listed are not met, the board shall deny the permit application but allow the applicant to resubmit in modified form. Based on our attendance at both hearings in March and April and our review of the record, including the transcript, it is unclear to our staff that the board's rationale to deny the project was limited to the impacts to the 912 square foot of jurisdictional tidal wetlands. Considerable discussion by the board centered on the project's stormwater design, compliance with stormwater regulations, and the concerns raised by the protestants for the residential subdivision's broader impacts to uplands. This was evident when the board, having failed to achieve a quorum at its March meeting, chose to discuss the project anyway at that hearing. That discussion included concerns for the upland portion of the project. Also missing from the board's review of this project was any assessment of impacts to tidal wetlands by the Virginia Institute of Marine Science. Now, your marching orders per the model wetlands ordinance were found under 28.2.13.13, the Code of Virginia, and it states that the commission shall modify, remand, or reverse the board's decision if the board in reaching its decision failed to, and you also can uphold the board's decision, of course, but you shall modify, remand, or reverse if the board in reaching its decision failed to fulfill its responsibilities under the wetland zoning ordinance, or the substantial rights of the applicant have been prejudiced because the findings, conclusions, or decisions of the board are in violation of constitutional provisions, in excess of statutory authority or jurisdiction, made upon unlawful procedure, affected by other area law, unsupported by the evidence on the record considered as a whole, or arbitrary, capricious, or an abuse of discretion. After careful review of the record, staff is recommending that the matter be remanded to the Portsmouth Wetlands Board with specific instruction to limit their review to the jurisdictional impacts of tidal wetlands and what measures, if any, could be undertaken to further minimize tidal wetland impacts. Furthermore, the board should consider formally requesting that VIMS provide a written recommendation after an application review and on-site inspection of the project. Lastly, the board should reconsider their staff's recommendation for approval of the project with direction to require compensation for any permissible impacts from the appropriate tidal wetlands bank. I'm going to leave this. These are all slides that were in the presentation to the board. I've simply brought them up for a summary slide as discussion opens. So you've got your plan view drawing for the outfalls as well as the ground shots through the non-vegetated and vegetated wetland component. That's all I have, sir.
Thank you. Any questions? Good question. Mr. Hadley?
Thank you, Chief Owens.
Sure.
I know that air jurisdiction is the wetlands itself and the overboard side, but I guess in my opinion, would it be better for the wetlands overall if there was a retention pond to somewhat filter out all the, because it looked like it was gonna be paved and a lot of concrete and everything, all the contaminants that are gonna run off of that before it even goes through the wetlands?
Kelsey, I'm trying to confine my review to the record. That discussion was raised by the board. Stormwater law is very complex and falls under different ordinances, which this project was subjected to by the city's engineering department. And that was the messaging that their staff gave their board. So
Can't answer it.
I'm looking to Kelsey. She's
I mean, frankly, I don't know that we know, because it's based on the record. So it's based on what's before the board. And I don't know if there was any testimony or analysis of that before the board. I believe there was discussion. So I think the answer might be with what we have, we don't know what the impact would be, because that's not the permit and there's no analysis that I've seen, and it's a big record. I could be missing something.
Yes, sir, Ms. Hadley.
Does anybody know where the stormwater, the runoff and all goes through the wetlands and all? Is there any public or private oyster beds right outside of it or anything that it could potentially harm?
Now, we're reaching outside of the record now, sir, so if I were to speak to that, I would be speaking to something outside of the record. And I don't know, I have not pulled up the lease maps.
Okay.
Good.
If I can refer to the record, the transcript, and that's on page 8, and it's starts at line 23. It states that, so I was able to speak with a stormwater compliance manager about some of the erosion and sediment control issues that came up last time. I'm assuming that was the March meeting. So she let me know that they are approved as noted for their stormwater and erosion sediment controls. And what that means is that it's in full compliance with the regulations of the state. That ends on page 9, line item 2.
That was the same question I had.
Yeah. That's from their record. But Chief, if I can ask, at this meeting, there's a lot goes in, and this is perhaps outside the record, but they reference in here about the planning, I know they reference in here about the zoning department giving their approval. And I think they also mentioned about sediment control committee or the sediment control manager giving their approval. Stormwater compliance manager, I just read the record that said that it met full state compliance requirements. Is that, and this is what they all considered during the hearing, according to the record, if I'm correct.
It's my understanding that, as you just noted, that the staff did speak to the litany of other approvals that the project had already been subjected to, and it was my understanding this was the last and final decision in Portsmouth that was needed for the project to go forward.
May I follow up?
Mr. Branson?
And if I read this correctly, and I hope someone is here from the Portsmouth Wetlands Board to speak, and if they're here, I'll hold my question to them.
The chairman and the vice chair are both here, as I believe their staff as well.
Okay, then I'll hold my questions to them.
Ms. Kellum?
My question was answered, but I do have another question. I know VIMS hadn't weighed in. Has VIMS even had the opportunity to be on site?
Not been on site.
So they can't answer any questions at this point?
Right.
Thanks.
Any evidence from VIMS today would be new and outside the record, sir.
So, and I want to put this question out there because the conversations that we're having here are only where our authority falls. The question about retention pond and water quality is not a that's an upland issue that I understand the concerns, but we've seen this before on many projects. We're not the entity to have that question to stop a project. This board doesn't have the authority for that. So, I don't know, because when that was the question I had, Associate Member Branson had, was the stormwater management plan was approved for building it this way, correct?
Correct.
So we don't have jurisdiction over that. So we only have jurisdiction where they put the pipe in the wetlands area and in the title, that's it.
Do we really, I mean, I don't understand the legality of what we should be considering. Do we have any jurisdiction over wetlands? I thought the wetlands were handled by other
Randy can tell you
entities.
where our jurisdiction stops.
In Kelsey's reaching for code book, a senior evaluation 28-2-13-13, those, and Kelsey, I'd like to yield to you now. But you're looking for whether or not the board committed a procedural error of law or not, and is the decision supported by the record?
Right, so under chapter 1300 of 28.2, permits are required for disturbances to wetlands. If there is not a local wetlands board, and that requires that the locality adopt a model ordinance that is also in the code, if they haven't done that, then it falls to us. If they have done that, then it falls to the wetland board. And under 28.2, 1311, 1312, and 1313, that delineates what our ability is to review the lower decision. We are no longer making a decision, we are reviewing a decision. Under 1312, it says the commission shall hear the appeal or conduct the review of the record transmitted by the board to the commissioner. There are two circumstances where the commission may take additional evidence. That is either to resolve controversy as to the correctness of the record or as the ends of justice require. We have typically interpreted that we need a vote of the commission to open the record if you want to open it as the ends of justice require. Because under the statute, we conduct the review of the record. And then under 1313, it talks about exactly when we can modify, remand, or reverse. And it is if the decision if the Wetlands Board failed to fulfill its responsibilities, the substantial rights of the appellant or applicant have been prejudiced, because of a violation of constitutional provisions, excess of statutory authority or jurisdiction of the Wetlands Board, made upon unlawful procedure, affected by other error of law, unsupported by the evidence on the record considered as a whole, or arbitrary, capricious, or an abuse of discretion.
Randy read verbatim to us.
Yes.
My-
I'm sorry, Randy.
That's okay.
My question for
Belt
council,
and suspenders.
my question to council is, would not the first hearing of evidence without a quorum violated that? And no evidence should have been heard without a quorum. We wouldn't do it here. I can't speak for all the other boards. I wouldn't allow that.
I am a little hesitant to say yes or no, simply because it is the commission's decision, whether it was made upon unlawful procedure. That is a reason to remand, reverse, or modify. So I hesitate to weigh in on whether I personally think that, because I don't have a vote.
Yeah, I mean, the reason I brought that up is I have a tough time as a reasonable person thinking it won't get you to a point where it was a non-prejudicial issue. It's going to prejudice the decision made. You've already had enough information to possibly make a decision without having all the information and all the people there.
So when we started, you said we should review, but we not make a decision. And, I mean, I've read all this stuff, and, I mean, I don't feel, and I know enough about wetlands and all this stuff, but I don't feel qualified that I should make a decision overriding a wetlands board, because that's their job, and that's not our job.
I mean, that's why the statute is written the way it is. It is specifically written in an appellate language. That's why we're only looking at the record. That's why we have specific listed things that we can make decisions on. But there are certain things that if you believe they occurred, it is our role to modify, remand, or reverse. And that's unlawful procedure, that's unsupported by the evidence on the record considered as a whole. So we can't take additional evidence and say, well, they didn't consider this or whatever. Arbitrary, capricious, or an abuse of discretion, which is generally a very high standard, et cetera. That's all in 28.2.13.13. So you shouldn't be making a decision on the permit. That would be overriding the Wetland Board's decision. This is about whether the Wetlands Board did their job properly.
And which is, before I go just to Associate Member Headley, staff's recommending remand it back to the Portsmouth Wetland Board. Staff's recommendation is not for us to make a decision on this. The decision staff is asking is it go back to them to be properly reviewed. Mr. Headley?
I do like staff's recommendation that they have a formal request that VIMS provide written recommendation. I actually serve on a wetlands board in my local county, and VIMS's input on a lot of projects that come before us give us a whole lot more insight than we can see on our own. So I do like that.
Any more questions?
Can I make a motion that we follow staff's recommendation?
We gotta wait to hear from the public, but I think they already know what your decision might be. We better see if it changes. So is there, if there are no more questions for Chief Owen, I'll open this up to the public. Okay,
Trying to avoid that.
is the applicant or a representative of the applicant present and wish to speak at this time before I open up to anyone else? Please come forward. Please raise your right hand. You swear to tell the whole truth, nothing but the truth, so help you God?
Yeah.
Please state your name for the record in the microphone.
Name is Dustin Pringle. I'm the Natural Resource Manager with Bay Environmental. The proposed project, as indicated for Wyatt Landing, consists of Outfall A, which impacts 369 square feet of tidal wetlands, 136 square feet of which to be vegetated, and 233 square feet of which are non-vegetated. Sorry. Outfall B to the south will impact 543 square feet of tidal wetlands, 188 of which are vegetated tidal wetlands, and 355 square feet are non-vegetated tidal wetlands. The applicant has reduced and minimized impacts as much as practicable, and there are no other additional wetland impacts or resource protection area buffer encroachments outside the outfall impact areas for this project. The applicant is mitigating the loss of vegetated tidal wetlands with the purchase of 324 square feet of compensatory mitigation credits for purchase from Chesapeake Land Development's New Mill Creek Tidal Mitigation Bank. Unfortunately, there are no local Portsmouth mitigation banks that would allow mitigation to stay within the Portsmouth area, and the proposed development site shoreline is also not a good candidate for on-site mitigation. This is due to an already established natural stand of Spartina alterniflora, which is the common name is smooth cordgrass, in the vicinity of Outfall A. There is no native stand of smooth cordgrass in the vicinity of Outfall B due to the dominance of the invasive species Phragmites australis, also known as common reed. Phragmites will present challenges to establish a successful mitigation site and allow for the mitigation monitoring requirements to be met. No mitigation is required in the city of Portsmouth for the loss of non-vegetated tidal wetlands, and the U.S. Army Corps of Engineers does not require mitigation for the loss of anything under 1/10 acre of impacts under nationwide permit guidelines. The outfall structures are required by state and local laws for stormwater management and are considered a water-dependent activity. The site is properly zoned for this development, and this is a by right project. The project has been reviewed multiple times, up to 8 times, and pre-approved by the city engineering department, and has been reviewed by the city's independent engineering firms, Kimley Horn and Arcadis. And this project meets all erosion and sediment controls and water quality standards for stormwater management. Due to the fact that the project does not propose any shoreline stabilization, and the remainder of the shoreline includes the proposed protection of the RPA and the CBPA 100-foot buffer areas, a living shoreline is not required and therefore not a viable option for mitigation as previously proposed in the local wetlands board meetings. In addition, it was also proposed in the April 2nd local wetlands board meeting about additional measures being reviewed, such as including a stormwater management pond and reducing it to 1 outfall instead of 2. This option was reviewed during the multiple review periods by the engineering department and their engineering staff. And it was determined that it was, 1, not economically feasible, as it would require the removal of potentially up to 3 to 4 lots, which would be a reduction of 18 to 24% loss of developable area, therefore not economically feasible. In addition to that, one of the drainage requirements with the state is to satisfy the energy balance equation, which states that your discharge cannot exceed 1% of the total flow going to the receiving facility for a drainage corridor. With one outfall, that cannot be met, and by placing two outfalls, it satisfied the state requirements. As mentioned before, on pages 8 through 9, it was stated by local wetlands board staff that this project has already been pre-approved by the engineering department. This is a different developer than the one that was responsible for the previous adjacent subdivision extension on Thornwood Street for the development, which was a phase 1 of the development, and therefore this applicant should not be subject to mitigate for any misconduct of the previous developer or contractors as indicated by the public during the April 2nd local wetlands board hearing. This project area location is properly zoned with the city, is a by right project to the landowner. The wetland impacts and CBPA buffer impacts have been avoided and minimized to the maximum extent practicable to only include impacts for the stormwater outfall locations. Stormwater outfalls are a water-dependent activity and required by state and local law for erosion and sediment control, as well as water quality under stormwater management guidelines. Mitigation for the wetland loss has also been provided. This project has been under multiple reviews by the city engineering department and their contracted private engineering firms Kimley Horn and Arcadis. This project has been approved already by the U.S. Army Corps of Engineers with a permit approval letter dated November 22nd, 2025. We have been pending local wetlands board approval for over 6 months now. We feel that the local wetlands board decision was based on many other factors that do not directly relate to the impact area themselves for outfalls that are required by law. We feel the decision to vote 5-0 with no for the project was more related to the previous development activities with information that was provided and the other aspects of the development, such as what activities future homeowners might do, or sedimentation and pollution events, which should be covered by the already approved project with the city engineering department. That's all I have.
Are there any questions from,
Commissioner, I have a question.
please?
Mr. Pringle, would you explain to me, I'm not an attorney, don't want to be one, a by right project, would you explain in your words what that means?
It's just the landowner's rights it's landowner's right to be able to develop the property due to the fact that it has the proper zoning.
Commissioner, may I ask?
Yes, proceed.
And during this hearing, and I read in the record, I can't find it here, but I pointed out if I could, there was one member who stated that they want development in Portsmouth, I believe. I don't know if it's the vice chair or not. I'll try and find it. But this outfall that you propose on this property, it actually benefits the neighborhood, I guess it's to the north, Esther Court. There's an existing neighborhood on one side of Esther Court, I believe, and this outfall, I believe, also drains that neighborhood to the north.
Yes, so Thornwood Street, the original Thornwood Street had a dead-end cul-de-sac. That cul-de-sac was extended to include Esther Court, and north of Esther Court was the original portion of the development that was conducted, I believe, in 2018. And so now the new developer, the applicant, is coming in and to develop the rest of it south of Esther Court, so they are tied together.
And there's stormwater outfalls in that neighborhood, in the surrounding neighborhoods, right?
Correct.
Okay. That's all I have, sir. Thank you.
Is Esther Court presently constructed?
Yes, it is.
But the cul-de-sac going into this property is not?
Yes, the cul-de-sac of Thornwood, the original cul-de-sac has been extended, and Esther Court is an extension of the original cul-de-sac, and now the new cul-de-sac is at the end of Esther Court.
There's another cul-de-sac at the top of the property.
Yes, that one has not been constructed yet. That's part of the development.
So what's causing this is this property right now is pervious property. And by putting those two cul-de-sacs in there creates some impervious
It does, yes, that's
property
correct.
which needs to be drained.
Yes, sir.
How does the top cul-de-sac get drained? Because there's no outfall to that. Does that drain all the way down Esther Court? I haven't seen the elevation.
That I'm not sure. I don't have the engineering stormwater design plans with me.
So really, the addition of the bottom cul-de-sac, the little Esther Court, where the two outfalls originate, they're handling the water from that.
They're handling the water.
issue.
Yes, sir.
Are
Yeah,
they- And they're also handling water from Esther Court?
correct.
Right now, Esther Court just drains onto
Correct.
the
They're-
pervious land next to it, which is this developer's land.
I believe due to public input, not facts that I'm aware of, but due to public input at the local wetlands board meeting, there were outfalls constructed in the 2018 development of the north of Esther Court. But anything south of Esther, where Esther Court is, and anything south of Esther Court currently has no drainage.
All right, so looking at the site, looks to me like lots 8, 9, and 10 have the most wetlands encroachment in their property. And presently, those lots drain right on through that wetlands into the creek without any outfall.
Correct.
So they just continue, will continue in the future to do that. Of course, draining through Phragmites is a real feat anyway, but, okay, go ahead, so.
Any more questions? Thank you, sir. Thank you for your time.
Thank you.
Is there anyone else in the audience that wishes to speak on this project at this time? Anyone else in the audience that wishes to speak on this project, for or against?
There's one in back there.
I can't see anybody. If you please come forward. The computer screen was in the way. Please raise your right hand. You swear to tell the whole truth, nothing but the truth, so help you God?
I do, sir.
Please state your name and the microphone for the record.
My name is Leslie Clark. I live on Thornwood Street, just as north of this development. And I do believe that what I'm getting ready to say is non-necessary to say because of what y'all have just reported on your duties. But there's an existing BMP outfall structures already there on Lot 7, which would be at the north, at the westmost cul-de-sac. At the back of Lot 7, there's an existing BMP that they're not showing on these drawings. And my question would be why they couldn't utilize that for partial of this drainage of water.
That wouldn't be our.
Well, I can't answer it, but I would assume they considered that BMP when they considered this. I mean, I don't know, I don't have the information.
Just wanted to bring that information.
Yeah, guys, I think that's not the record, and so we're speaking to the record here. If council can, I mean, if you want to elaborate.
I think everyone probably understands.
Is there anyone else in the audience that wishes, please come forward, ma'am. Raise your right hand. You swear to tell the whole truth, nothing but the truth, so help you God?
Yes,
Please state your name for the record, ma'am.
it's Dr. Janice Bray, and I reside at 4700 Thornwood, and into the point of where the water drains off for the Esther Court, it drains right toward my home and my lot. There's some requests for consideration of the original record to look at this particular applicant's request on the basis of it being 17 residencies that are being proposed. And for those two stormwater outflows, it would actually, one, benefit the developer that lost their permit to develop the Esther Creek 14 residences, and to assist with that drainage, which perhaps would help my property because the water's coming directly toward me for the past 4 years. The 14 residencies, however, would be added to the 17 new single residencies that are being proposed. And so if you think about that, it's 31 new homes that would benefit from these two outflows. There's also some additional stormwater contributions if you add 31 homes that would be going into Lily Creek or Kearney Creek. And so the concern is that the original application, there might be some controversy in fact, and because they're presenting 17 residencies where they want to allow the stormwater, but this is actually a total of 31 residencies. Now, and we would love to have more housing. I would love to have neighbors, because this lot has been vacant for 10 years. But there seems to be some difficulty, that there's some fits and starts prolonging the process. And so we don't, as a resident, want to delay the process. But also as a resident, I think it's important when you have waterfront properties that you notify the people that are on the waterfront. And so one of those 3 slides, the introductory, showing the land that Pringle and that piece of Maynard Farm had the right to develop, the notification as a second issue beyond the drainage and beyond the failed Esther Court developers' efforts, the notification of folks that are going to be impacted by stormwater drainage and riprap, and I'm a physician, I have no idea what I'm talking about when I talk about what's happening with stormwater drainage, but I did get a consultant to come to me in an adjacent waterfront that feels that there is some opportunity to have a shoreline, and it's directly adjacent to these pictures that were taken at low tide where you see silt, but there is a lot of vegetation. And so my second point is notification of the people that are along that waterfront, that maybe they can also add some information in terms of the long-term effects that such water, and a large amount of water water runoff would impact their properties. And none of those residents that are along the waterfront have been notified. The notification has gone to vacant lots that are sitting on Esther Court and excluded me completely. And that is a second issue in terms of notification. And I think people that are along the waterfront that have riparian rights would like to be notified. And thirdly is that there is some controversy as to what is vegetated versus non-vegetated. And even though the developer is not required to look at mitigation and having a living shoreline, I think the future residents that are going to be looking at having 30 homes in this area could be benefited by having a living shoreline. And so even though it's not required, that I think is controversial if it can be a living shoreline. And so although a lot of the information that was provided to the Wetlands Board is not within the jurisdiction of the wetland, because it's coming to the larger body and because this is a joint application, I know that some of the information was not able to be considered by the wetlands, but I think it is a controversy to say that there are 17 residences and there's going to be 31 single-family homes that are not currently constructed. And when you think about the perimeter and the impact on this one little Thornwood dead end that goes to Cardinal Lane, which was the original permit, that's 29 homes. So what we are actually talking about is adding 31 new residencies into this pocket in Portsmouth And the waterfront and the water drainage, I know is the issue today, but I really just want to bring that forward, that you're talking about cramming 60 people now into this little pocket of Portsmouth waterfront. So thank you for hearing me. I know it may have nothing to do with your jurisdiction, but it's not clear with anything that's being presented. So appreciate you.
Thank you, Doc. Any questions for the good doctor? Thank you so much.
It's gonna run away.
Yes, sir. Thank you. Is there anyone else in the audience that wishes to speak? Everyone, we're going to hold you to 3 minutes. I gave the good doctor a little longer, but let's try not to get to a point. Is there anyone else that wishes to speak on this project? Please come forward. Raise your right hand. You swear to tell the whole truth, nothing but the truth, so help you God?
Yes.
Please state your name for the record.
Tim Jones. I'm one of the owners of Wyatt Landing, worst investment ever made. But to clear something up, there's actually only 13 remaining lots that are in question. The 4 that would make the 17 have long ago been sold, and I think 3 of which may have already been built on by the builder. But this project was handed to me in the city of Portsmouth. I was there in 2018 for something totally unrelated. And the director at the time in planning said, hey, I got a shovel-ready project for you. He already had it sketched out, 24 lots, which after I bought it, I learned that who I was buying it from was a recent retiree from the city of Portsmouth, so I guess it was them helping their own. The 24 lots quickly became 17 lots, and now some 6+ years later, I'm still sitting on a piece of land that's met with nothing but resistance. And as my environmental engineer stated, we've met all the requirements that the state requires, the Army Corps of Engineers, Kimley Horn, which is about 10,000 people, I think they have on their payroll. We've met their requirement. And it just, every month this drags on, and while this doesn't mean a lot to those that are against it, cost me and my partner over $9,000 a month. Multiplied over 6.5 years, it's become quite an expensive undertaking for which we'll never get our money back. But there are 13 remaining lots in question. With doing it the way that the city engineering is now requiring us to do to meet and exceed the requirements to protect the wetlands, took our development budget from, originally it was quoted at $450,000 for the remaining lots, to now it's over $970,000, so more than doubled. The BMP option was explored. Again, it eliminated 3 to 4 lots, so we would have been better off just to shut it down. But again, the solution we've come up with meets all the requirements that were set forth, and now we're just kind of playing the game of how many more months can this be drug out before we can actually hopefully get this off of our plate. Thanks.
Thanks, sir. Any questions for the speaker? Thank you, sir. Thank you. Is there anyone else in the audience that wishes to speak on this matter at this time? All right. I won't ask again. Matters before the commission? So, can you bring back your staff recommendation slide? Mr. White, you have the floor.
So the staff has recommended 3 things. And before I make my motion, the first one is to remand it back to the Wetlands Board. The second one is formally request VIMS to provide a written recommendation. And the third one is require compensation for any permissible impacts the Tidelands Bank. I think on the third one, if the Wetlands Board goes back and does that, or whoever does it is gonna have to pay the bank for the lost land. We don't have to, I mean, that's a decision that I don't feel we should make, or should be required, especially after legal told me we shouldn't even be making a decision.
Commissioner, may I clarify?
Yeah, please.
Yeah, it isn't to tell the board to issue the permit or not, it's to consider what the wetland impacts are that are permissible impacts, and if they conclude that the project should be approved, then any permissible impacts they should seek compensation for. It's sending it back with, we watched it here today, the focus turned to residential lots and stormwater, which is what happened at the Wetlands Board, and it's the staff's perspective, having attended both hearings, that the hearing should focus on wetlands and not on stormwater, not on residential lots. Focus on wetlands, look at what VIM says, and then reach a decision on wetlands.
Okay. I'll make a motion that we accept staff's first recommendation to remand it back to the Wetlands Board, period.
And not include the rest of that?
Nope.
I have a recommendation. We're probably gonna wind up with getting it back exactly the way it's written if we do that, but that, we'll be here again in 6 more months. So I got a motion to accept remanding it back to Portsmouth Wetland Board. Ms. Kellum, I'm sorry. Ms. Kellum, sorry.
Discussion?
Yeah, discussion.
I feel strongly about having VIMS weigh in. Just open it up to other associate commissioners.
Mr. Erskine?
I completely agree. My issue with this is that VIMS did not have an opportunity to provide comments. So I would make well, you don't have a second yet on that
Right,
motion,
no,
so
so-
I'll just leave it at that right now.
Any more conversation? Discussion, Mr. Bryson?
Some discussion, Commissioner. I think in reviewing this package, I don't know how many times, and sticking just to the written record that we got, it was clear to me that the local wetlands board focused on detriments of more traffic, sediment, residential building, congestion, and not on the issue that's before them.
Where the authority arises.
That, where their authority stops, that's what they didn't focus on. So at the very least, I believe it should be remanded with the staff recommendation that they have up on the screen, if not reversed. But I'm more in favor to let the local wetlands board take a second look at this with the advice of VIMS weighing in on this, because they talk about active erosion and no shoreline protection, all this stuff that isn't germane to the issue that was before them.
Right.
And I think in that respect, that the local wetlands board erred in their decision and their vote.
More discussion? I have a motion from Mr. White to accept number 1 of staff recommendation, just to recommend back to the Wetlands Board. Do I have a second? I'm gonna ask one more time. Do I have a second? Motion fails with inability to be seconded. Mr. Erskine?
I would offer a motion to accept staff recommendation in full.
Second.
I have a motion to accept staff recommendation as presented in full, seconded by a whole slew of people, but we'll go ahead with Ms. Kellum. So, any further discussion? All right. That being said, we'll take it to a vote. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed? Nay? Any abstentions? Motion carries 7-0. Thank you. It has been reprimanded back to the Wetlands Board with staff recommendations again. Thank you. Now we're at the moment of public comment. Remember, everyone, this is your opportunity to speak on a matter that is not on the agenda, and you have 3 minutes to speak on it. Is there anyone in the audience that wishes to come forward in public comment at this time? Raise your right hand. You swear to tell the whole truth, nothing but the truth, so help you God?
Yes, sir.
Please state your name for the record.
James Michael Glasgow.
Proceed.
I'm looking to get my oyster license reinstated. I lost it, I don't even know the exact time, 5 or 6 years ago. I did not, I just lost track of it. I wasn't using it. I was just holding on to the license in case I needed it. Now I need it. I just purchased a boat, and I'd like to be able to go back to work. I've been a lifelong waterman. all my life. I've jumped into a couple other jobs on a tugboat. Here recently, I've tried to get a few more jobs, jobs. But it all led back to where I started. So I want to go back to work.
Any questions for Mr. Glasgow? Mr. Branson?
Mr. Glasgow, thank you for coming here today. Do you have any violations, shellfish, fisheries, any violations of any kind?
I'm on probation for my reporting my license. A computer glitch, I guess. I reported last October, and it did not. I was late at times. I reported November and December. For some reason, October was not in there. I do them at the same time. I do mine and my wife's. No activity. I've been running charters all these years. That's fell through. So.
How long is that probation period?
1 year. But as far as shellfish violations, never in my life.
Any more questions for Mr. Glasgow? Mr. Headley?
I don't have a question, but I do know that last time this had been brought in front of us, there was some concern raised about the time that had elapsed since the last time the license was bought. You said that you forgot to pay it.
Yes, sir. In a timely manner. I called. I was like a month late. And I tried to get it, but was shot down by the ladies on the phone. I oystered 2010 when I got laid off from Skanska, Chickahominy River. I was a tugboat captain there. When I got laid off, I went to work. I was planting oyster shells for the state through Shores and Ruart.
Yeah.
So I mean, I've been active in fisheries. Crab. I'm a crabber. That's my thing. But wintertime, you need a job. You don't catch many crabs in wintertime.
In the past, that if it has been brought up that we would give your license back to you, it was also said that any and all fees from the previous years that were not paid would be paid in full. Would you?
Absolutely.
You'd be good with that?
Yes, sir. If I hadn't have been late, they would have been paid up till now, and I would have never lost a license. My charter business was doing pretty good till a few years ago. And I've always said I'm not going out there oystering for those guys that need it. I was making a living. I didn't, that's just the way I am. I wasn't going out there just to double dip because I could with the license to spend the money on the rig. And I just, that's just the way I feel about it. Making a living's hard enough, but when you got everybody in the world jumping in there to try to take just because it's good, go catch your limit in 2 or 3 hours like these guys are doing. People I've never seen before is doing it, and now I need it, And then I see people that's all they do. They jump in there for the hot money and move along.
I see Chief Kenyon get up. Is there any?
A quick look through his license history just to confirm. The last time he did have an oyster user fee was 2017. I looked through his violations and his summons. It's been over 20 years since a small crab violation. So just so you have the background and the facts based on what's in the system, typically, what this commission has decided that is, if they would like to do, is to back pay those fees. But that's entirely up to the commission. I just wanted to verify those facts on the license history and the summons history.
I personally feel we ought to give him.
I think he should go back to work.
Give his license back to him.
Absolutely.
I make a motion to return Mr. Glasgow's license to him, and with him paying all previous fees that have not been paid.
Second.
I got a motion to pay the previous 8 years or counting this year, fees from Mr. Headley and reinstate his eligibility for oyster licenses. I have a second from Mr. Branson. Any further discussion? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed?
Abstain.
I have one abstention. Passes 6-0 with Ms. Kellum abstaining. Keep up with your license.
Thank you. Do they send the paper in the mail or?
Get with Mr. Kenyon, he'll take care of any questions you have.
All right. Thank you.
Is there anyone else in the public at this time that wishes to speak during public comment on an item that is not on the agenda? An item that's not on the agenda? All right. Chief Gears, you have the floor.
Hopefully this will be fairly quick. You'll see that. Good morning, everybody. This is a public hearing for a proposal to amend Chapter 4 VAC 20-950-10 pertaining to black sea bass to establish the 2025 recreational management measures for this species. This is something we have to do every year because of National Marine Fisheries Service allows us to open the season in February, which is out of the normal season, but then we have to pay whatever we catch in February, we have to pay back, and we've been doing that for a number of years now. As I just said, NIMS requires us to do that. If we're going to have a February season, we have to have payback, and we have to have some specific constraints on it. We've participated in this fishery every year since 2018, except for 2022, because 2022 there was a very delayed recreational specifications from the council, so we weren't able to get the fishery up and running in time. We do require a mandatory recreational species permit, which is free, and you have reporting requirements. So anybody who fishes in this fishery must report their landings. They must also hail in to our dispatcher every day. So they call in the morning, they say where they're going, when they're coming back, and where they're going to be coming back from, and that allows our staff to go and intercept them at their dock and get some biological samples as well. And the Atlantic States Marine Fisheries Commission and the Mid-Atlantic Council approved this again for this year, for the 2025 season. This is just showing the harvest we've had since 2019. This is a fishery that is very much driven by weather. Mr. Branson can attest to that. You know, we can have beautiful weather in the middle of the week, and on the weekend it's really crummy, and in February that's very common in this area. So if we have good weather years, we usually have more effort and more harvest. This year we had about 28,000 pounds. And this is just a table of showing, you know, the statistics that we've collected over time, the information. So in 2025 we had 268 permits, which was down about 23% over 2024. About 115 trips, which is about 8.5% above 2024. The harvest was 28,176 pounds, which is 16% above 2024, and 12,817 fish. The reason why we collect those biological samples is so we can get an average weight per fish. So when we go out and we do that information, we're collecting number of fish that are caught, and anglers are reporting the number of fish caught, so we're able to get an average weight per each fish, and that's how we come up with our total pounds. Our reporting rate, it hasn't varied very much. It's a low of 71%. There's a high of 82%. This year was 77%. Moving on to participation, like I said, we had 268 permits, about 77% reporting rate. 72 of the individuals' permits reported their trips. 135 reported no activity. We had 61 individuals who did not report at all. So that's why we have 77% reporting rate. Off to the right is just showing the statistics over time for that, the number of anglers, because that's one of the questions we ask: how many anglers did you have on your boat? So we have that as well. We have the total number of trips. The harvest per trip seems to be going up because the last 2 years, the vast majority is coming from charter captains, which also includes head boats. About 88% of the total harvest is coming from from charter boats in general. So I think that's why the number of fish per trip are going up. The way we calculate this season is we come up with, we look at the waves in the Marine Recreational Information Program, which is MREP. This is the data we're using for that. So we use the most recent 2 years. So we're using 2023 and 2024 as our estimates there, and we look to see what the average catch rate is per day. So we look at the season, how many days are in the wave. We usually try to, the last few years, we've tried to adjust the season in the middle of the summer in July, because there's other species to target. So that's when most of the anglers, and let's say let's close it then, because there's a lot of other things to target. So, and we come up with an average number of fish being caught per day, and that's how we adjust the season. So based on that information, to the 28,176 pounds of black sea bass we landed this year, we have to come up with 9 closed days. So last year was 8, so we're increasing it by 1. So so we have to increase it to 9 days this year. So it's the season. The recommended would be August 5th. The closed season will be September 16th through August 4th. Last year was 1 day less than that. So we're adding 1 extra day because of what we caught this year. And the regulation itself is in Chapter 4 VAC 2950, Section 45 recreational possession limits and seasons, and subsection C, which is the open recreation fishing seasons shall be May 15th through July 15th and August 5th through December 31st. So from last year to this year, we're adding 1 more day of a closed season because of what they caught in February. And staff recommendation is request the commission to approve amendments to Chapter 4 VAC 20-950-10 pertaining to black sea bass to establish the 2025 recreational management measures for this species. So, any questions from anybody?
Mr. Headley?
I feel pretty certain I read that in the paperwork we get, there was no opposition to this.
Yeah, thank you for saying that. FMAC had no opposition. We met with them when we talked. Usually we meet with FMAC to decide when they want to have the season. That's primarily. And we've kind of got into that framework of what we've been using the last few years. They like doing this because they like going out early in the season to be able to catch black sea bass. In the middle of the summer, there's a lot of other species available, and they like having it go all the way to the end of the year. So FMAC is in support of this. We didn't receive any other public comments.
Thank you.
Any more questions? Thank you. Thank you, Chief Deere. Appreciate you. Is there anyone in the audience that wishes to speak on this? On black sea bass? Anyone in the audience wish to speak on black sea bass? All right, that makes it easy. Matters before the commission.
Motion.
A motion to approve staff recommendation from Associate Member Branson.
Second.
Got a second from Associate Member Headley. Any further discussion? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed? Any abstentions? Motion carries 7-0.
Yeah, thank you.
Y'all are a lively bunch today.
Yeah, I would, Commissioner, I was just feeling sorry for the chief that his audience is always much less. Chip.
Next month.
Be careful what you say.
it's men
It's not
hating.
Have some
always
fish
bad.
in there.
Which one?
Season's coming.
Exactly right.
Maybe they should put
Target on
them
my back
first.
enough, so that's fine.
Take them as you can get them, right?
Promise when they show up, they
The
show up.
least the better.
All right, there being no further business, this meeting is adjourned. The next commission meeting will be held Tuesday, June 24th, 2025. Be there or be square.